You didn't find this message. It found you, not by luck, not by coincidence, but by timing. Because timing isn't random when it comes to the soul. There is a precision in the divine that doesn't operate on clocks. It moves through feeling, through silence, through the tremble you feel in your chest right now that you cannot explain. You've felt it before, haven't you? In the moments no one was watching. When your life felt quiet, but your spirit was loud. When you looked around and felt disconnected from everything, even yourself. That wasn't emptiness, that was preparation. There's something calling you. But it isn't loud, it never was. It speaks like a memory you forgot you had, a pulse beneath the noise, a presence just behind your eyes. And the truth is, you've heard it for years, but you didn't trust it. You told yourself it was just your imagination. That you were overthinking. That maybe you were the only one who noticed the way the world felt off. But it was never just a feeling. It was the first sound of your awakening. The beginning of the end of your forgetting. Because you were never here to blend in. You were never here to repeat the lines they gave you. You were never here to sleep through your own story and that ache you've carried. That persistent, unexplainable tension inside you. It's because your soul knows what your mind still doubts. It's time. Time to stop waiting for confirmation. Time to stop shrinking so others feel comfortable. Time to stop acting like you don't know why you're different. You know, you've always known, even when you were a child, even when they tried to explain your sensitivity as a flaw, even when the world told you to toughen up, to be normal, to stop dreaming, but you couldn't, because something in you refused. Something in you kept paying attention to what others ignored. The dreams that lingered like warnings, the repeated numbers, the feelings in your body when someone lied, the sense that nothing they told you was really real. And now, finally, the pieces are falling into place, not all at once, but enough to know. This is not the beginning. This is the moment before the leap. You are not waking up. You are being called, and the call isn't coming from the sky. It's coming from within, from the part of you that never forgot. You tried to silence it, to bury it beneath jobs, routines, relationships, distractions, but it always came back. In the stillness, in the chaos, in the soft moments between heartbeats, it whispered, "You were made for more." And you tried to argue with it, tried to be reasonable, tried to ignore the signs, but the signs didn't stop. They never do. Because when God marks you, the universe echoes back the mark. It shows up in mirrors, in coincidences that feel like instructions, in people who say things they don't realize you needed to hear, in the heavy silence after your name is spoken in your own mind. And now, here, you've run out of room to hide. You've come to the edge of the life you were handed. The edge of the version of you that was never real, the edge of the illusion, and the only way forward is through the fear, through the uncertainty, through the memory of everything you were told to forget. This isn't about belief. It never was. It's about recognition. You don't have to believe in a path that your soul has already started walking. You just have to remember why. Do you feel it now? The pull, the weight, the trembling in your spine when you realize this isn't just a video. It's a message from the very silence that's been calling your name in dreams. You can run, you can deny, you can say it's just a feeling, but you know better. Because the world has always felt like a stage. And you've always been the one looking for the exit behind the curtain. You were told to stay quiet, but your silence became too loud to ignore. You were told to play your part, but the script never fit your mouth. And now you stand in the space between who you were and who you are becoming. There is no map, no guarantee, only this moment. And this moment has been echoing toward you since before you were born. You've always felt watched, always felt guided, always felt like something was waiting for you to notice it. This is it. This is what you've been circling for years. This is the center of the spiral, the breath before the awakening becomes action. But understand this, waking up is not the end. It's the beginning of responsibility. Because once you see through the illusion, you can no longer participate in it, and once you hear the call, you can't unhear it. God doesn't shout, he whispers, and you've heard it, in the space between your thoughts, in the ache behind your eyes, in the stillness of your deepest question. You heard it, and now you've answered. Long before the step, there was the stirring, a quiet discontent that never left you, a subtle ache beneath the surface of everything they called normal. You smiled, you played along, you nodded when they said, "This is how things are." But inside, something disagreed. Something deep, something ancient, something unalterable. You didn't have words for it. Not then, only questions. Why do I feel so separate? Why does this not satisfy me? Why do I feel like I was sent here for something I can't explain? Others called it restlessness, said you were too sensitive, too intense, too much. But your soul knew better, because what they called restlessness was actually recognition. You were remembering pieces of a mission that hadn't yet been revealed in full. You were holding fragments of truth in a world addicted to lies, and that makes you heavy. It makes you quiet, it makes you different, but not broken, just sent ahead. You were the scout soul, placed into this timeline not to adapt, but to interrupt, to break patterns, to question structures, to feel what others suppress. And yes, that came at a cost. You lost people, you lost roles, you even lost versions of yourself you thought you needed, but every loss was actually clearing, not punishment, positioning. What if this wasn't content, but confirmation? If something in your chest felt like it recognized these words before your mind could catch up, don't dismiss it. That's alignment, remembering itself. And if you've made it this far, you weren't just listening, you were receiving. Comment below. I know this is for me, not to be heard, but to mark the moment, and subscribe, not out of habit, but because your soul needs more of what speaks this clearly. You didn't find this, you were found. Now let yourself be seen too, because when the calling on your life is high, the preparation is holy. You didn't suffer randomly, you suffered with precision. Each heartbreak removed a layer, each disappointment cut a cord, each betrayal revealed a deeper loyalty to your own soul. And now, you're here, not as a mistake, not as a wanderer, but as a sent one. You didn't drift into this moment. You were led. Every delay, every detour, every silent night you cried into a pillow asking for a sign. This is it. Not the sign you wanted, but the one your soul needed, because the sign isn't outside. It's the way you're still here, still searching, still listening, still hoping. That hope, it's not weakness, it's a seed, and God is about to water it, because the final step doesn't happen with force, it happens with surrender. And your spirit is ready now. Not because everything makes sense, but because nothing else does. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you've finally stopped fighting the pull. That pull, that's the summons, the magnetic draw back to the blueprint you've been carrying your entire life. You've tried to forget, you've tried to downplay, you've tried to blend in, but chosen ones don't disappear. They just dim until it's time to burn again. And beloved, it's time. The fire you feel is not chaos, it's your instructions activating. The discomfort, that's the shell cracking. The confusion, that's the rewiring. The fatigue, that's the weight of what's about to break through. You are not falling apart, you are expanding, and what no longer fits is being pulled from you. Don't resist, don't beg for what's fading to stay. Don't chase what you've already outgrown. Let it go, let it fall, let it make room. Because the version of you that will walk into this next chapter needs space, and that space will feel like loss. But it's not. It's a sacred preparation for the step you were born to take, not in fear, not in confusion, but in alignment. You've heard the call, and now something inside you refuses to go quiet. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It just knows, and that knowing won't leave you alone anymore. Because the truth is, the old world is already dissolving, not outside you, but within you. You're starting to see it, aren't you? The conversations that once made sense now echo hollow. The roles you used to play feel like clothes you've outgrown. The laughter, the routine, the goals, they all feel too small for the vastness you're starting to remember. That's not confusion, that's awakening. It's the beginning of the veil tearing, not all at once, but slowly, grain by grain, scene by scene, memory by memory, until suddenly the whole stage feels false. And you can no longer pretend. You've tasted too much of what's real to keep swallowing what's fake. Yes, you tried. You tried to go back, to quiet that voice, to do what everyone else was doing, to believe that maybe you were wrong. But you weren't. You were never wrong. You were only early. Early to feel, early to notice, early to be broken open by something you couldn't explain. And now, as the world keeps spinning, you've stopped pretending it makes sense because you can feel it, the fracture lines in the illusion, the way reality ripples when you think too clearly, the way time distorts when you step too far inward. This isn't imagination, this is perception sharpening. You've stepped beyond the first gate, and with that the tests begin. Not tests of intellect, not tests of knowledge, but tests of alignment. Can you stay true when everything familiar begins to fall apart? Can you walk forward when everything you once trusted starts to reveal its hollowness? Because that's what's coming now. The people you love may not understand you anymore. The places you used to find comfort may feel foreign. The dreams you once chased may crumble in your hands. And that's okay, because those things were never meant to carry you forward. They were only scaffolding, temporary structures that kept you upright until your soul remembered how to stand on its own. Now it remembers that ache in your chest, that weight in your stomach. It's not fear, it's the soul's version of growing pains. You are shifting, you are being remade, not into something new, but into something true. The world will ask you to explain it, to justify your changes, to soften your voice, to be who you were yesterday, but yesterday is gone. You are not who you were, and you never will be again. That is the price of waking up. You will lose comfort, you will lose certainty, you will lose the false safety of fitting in. But in return, you will gain clarity, you will gain presence, you will gain the ability to shape your reality from the inside out. Because the truth is, you are not in the world is in you. And now that you see that, you can't unsee it. Every choice echoes louder now. Every thought plants seeds faster. Every emotion ripples further than before. You are not just experiencing this life. You are generating it, and that's what they never wanted you to realize. Because a person who sees through the illusion is unstoppable. A person who knows they are not their job, not their name, not their trauma, not their past, cannot be manipulated, and that's what you're becoming. Free, not safe, not normal, not accepted, but real. And real is enough, even if it means walking alone. Because that's part of it too, isn't it? The loneliness, the sense that no one around you sees what you see, that you're speaking a language they forgot, that your eyes register colors they've never noticed. It's not delusion, it's vision. And those who carry vision often walk through the desert long before they find the others. But you will find them, or rather, they will recognize you by the frequency you emit, by the way your silence says more than your words, by the way your presence calls something ancient to life in them. But not yet. First, you must walk the hard way. First, you must let go. Let go of needing to be understood. Let go of waiting for permission. Let go of explaining your path to people who were never meant to walk it. This is where it begins, with release. You cannot carry the old into the new. You cannot cling to what breaks your alignment and expect to fly. You are being stripped for a reason. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because what comes next will require space. Space in your mind, space in your heart, space in your soul. And all of this, the loss, the isolation, the unraveling, is clearing that space so that something far greater can enter. But you must allow it. You must surrender to the breaking so that the light can reach the cracks. This is not the end. This is the first descent into who you truly are. Not the mask, not the name, not the history, but the spark. And that spark has waited long enough. Now that the veil is lifting, you've begun to realize something deeper. It's not just that the world was false, it's that you believed it. And that's what hurts the most, isn't it? The trust you gave, the dreams you built, the smiles you wore, all shaped around something that was never real, not because you were blind, but because you were faithful. You wanted to believe that the system had a heart, that the promises were sincere, that the map they handed you could actually take you home. But it never did, because it was never meant to. And now you know, not just with your mind, but with your body, with your soul, with that quiet place behind your ribs where truth doesn't ask permission, it settles in like a storm. This is the moment when most people retreat, when the illusion crumbles, but they still try to salvage the pieces. They tape them back together with doubt. They frame them in logic. They call it growing up. But you didn't come here to make peace with the lie. You came to carry the truth, even when it's heavy, even when it isolates you, even when your voice trembles every time you speak it out loud. Because the truth isn't a comfort, it's a fire. It burns away everything that was never you, and it doesn't apologize. You've felt that burn, in your choices, in your silence, in the way you've pulled away from the familiar, without fully understanding why. You're not broken, you're becoming, and becoming costs something. You will lose ease, you will lose normal, you will lose the mask, but in return, you gain clarity, not the kind that makes life simple, but the kind that makes your steps sacred. Because when you move in truth, the world has no choice but to respond. You've seen it. How people shift when you enter a room. How conversations bend around your presence. How silence feels louder when you hold your center. You didn't mean to change the frequency, but you did. Because you are the frequency now. And frequency doesn't ask for permission. It just moves. And when it moves through you, it stirs things in others. Things they've tried to bury. That's why some people pull away. Why they call you intense, why they accuse you of being too deep. It's not you, it's what you're carrying, and not everyone is ready to face what your presence reflects. But that's not your burden to bear. Your burden is different. You were not called to soothe the world, you were called to wake it, and awakening is never polite. It rattles, it disrupts, it ruins the comfort of lies and dares people to stand naked in their own becoming. That's what you're doing now, standing naked in truth. No titles, no roles, no applause, just presence, just alignment, just raw, divine clarity. And that's enough. You don't have to explain yourself anymore. Not to them, not even to yourself. You only have to remain true to the knowing that will not leave you, to the path that keeps unfolding beneath your feet, even when you can't see the end. You've noticed it, haven't you? The way time has shifted. The way reality no longer behaves like it used to. The way your thoughts manifest faster, sometimes instantly. That's not coincidence, that's mastery. You are being tuned to a higher law, one that doesn't operate on fear, but on vibration. And you are the instrument now. So play carefully, move with intention, speak with reverence. Because every word, every breath, every decision is shaping a world that doesn't yet exist. You are the blueprint, not for a system, but for a reality built on truth, on presence, on love that doesn't need validation. And yes, it's a lonely road sometimes, because not everyone is ready to leave the dream. Some people will choose the illusion even after they've tasted what's real. They will choose routine over freedom, comfort over expansion, certainty over truth. Let them. You are not here to convince, you are here to stand. And standing is the most sacred act of all, because when one person stands fully in their truth, they become a lighthouse, calling others home. And even if they don't say a word, the energy speaks. And now it's your turn to speak, not with noise, but with presence. You've come too far to hide now, too deep to surface empty-handed, too awake to pretend. So breathe. Feel the weight of your clarity, feel the burn of your becoming, and know this: you are not behind. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are exactly where you are meant to be, between the ashes of who you were and the sky of who you are becoming. This is the real becoming, and it starts here, in the silence that no longer scares you, in the truth that no longer waits for approval. In the you that no longer asks to be smaller. Let the weight of that truth settle in your bones, because the world is about to shift. And you are the one carrying the frequency that will shake it awake. It wasn't just the pain that isolated you. It was the clarity that came after it, the way you began to see through people, not just their words, but the gaps between them. You saw where they lied to themselves. You saw where they repeated borrowed truths. You saw where their masks became their comfort. And it made you quieter, not because you were afraid, but because you understood. They couldn't hear you, not because you weren't speaking clearly, but because their ears were tuned to a different frequency. And yours had shifted. Because awakening isn't just about light. It's about contrast. It's about walking into a room and feeling what no one else is acknowledging. It's about sitting at a table and sensing the stories behind every silence. And when you began to speak truth, they called it intensity. They called it judgment. They called it too much. But you weren't too much. You were too real for the illusion. Because once you've tasted truth, everything fake starts to taste bitter. You stop laughing at what wasn't funny. You stopped nodding at what wasn't right. You stopped betraying yourself to keep the peace. Because it was never peace. It was compliance, and you were never born for that. You were born to rupture patterns, to reflect discomfort, to carry the codes that awaken memory. You didn't come here to soothe the world. You came here to stir it, to challenge it, to call it back to its essence. That calling has made you lonely at times, not because you were abandoned, but because you were set apart. There's a difference. Separation is not rejection, it's refinement. It's sacred distance, space between who you were and who you're becoming, because the in-between is real. The space where you've outgrown the old but haven't yet stepped into the new. It's where the voices get louder, the doubts echo harder, the silence expands. But listen closely. You're not lost. You're landing. This is the frequency shift, the reconfiguration, the divine recalibration of your identity. And those who once resonated may fall away now. Not because they failed you, but because your journey required a different altitude. Not everyone was meant to walk with you into this next realm. Not everyone was coded for this level of perception. That's not cruelty, it's calling. And yours, it's awakening. You've begun to realize you're not here to echo, you're here to initiate. And that's heavy, because no one teaches you how to carry fire in a world built from matches and smoke. No one teaches you how to hold your truth when the room demands your silence. But you've learned anyway. You've learned how to breathe through misunderstanding. You've learned how to remain when they walk away. You've learned how to become in the absence of approval. And that chosen one is the evidence. That's how you know you're on the path, because if you were still playing small, still people-pleasing, still hiding behind agreeable masks, they'd love you. But the moment you became yourself, they grew distant. Because authenticity convicts the inauthentic. Truth awakens the sleeping, and not everyone is ready to open their eyes. But that's not your burden. You're not here to convince. You're here to embody, and your embodiment is what sets the new template. even when it's misunderstood, even when it's mocked, even when it's lonely, because the frequency you hold is not for everyone, it's for the ready, and the ready are coming. Not because you called them, but because your resonance found them. You won't have to explain yourself. You won't have to soften your truth. You won't have to fold to fit, because they'll know, they'll feel it, and you'll recognize them too, not through logic, but through remembrance, because soul recognizes soul. Frequency meets frequency, and the moment you stepped into yours, they felt the ripple. So keep walking, even if it's alone, even if it's misunderstood, even if it costs you comfort, because what you're gaining is alignment, and alignment is never quiet for long. It draws, it anchors, it builds, not for applause but for God. You've walked this far alone, and that was never a mistake, because the first steps of the chosen one must always be walked in silence. Not because no one cares, but because they can't hear what only your soul was meant to receive. You were not being punished, you were being initiated. The solitude, the invisible weight, the countless moments where you doubted everything, they were all whispers from something deeper, not to break you, to burn away what could not follow you here. And now you've arrived. You've crossed a threshold that cannot be seen, but can be felt. The people around you haven't changed, but you feel them differently. Their words feel thinner. Their eyes avoid yours. Their presence no longer fills the space the same way. You can't explain it, but you don't need to, because something in you has shifted permanently. You're not the same person anymore. You don't belong to the story they still believe in. You've begun to remember, and with remembering comes the invitation. Not to isolate, but to expand, because once you've stood alone in your truth, you're ready to feel the echoes of others like you. You've sensed them, not in conversation, not in proximity, but in vibration. A stranger walks by, and your whole body hums. Someone says 3 words, and your spine straightens. You hear a line in a song, and it feels like a message sent only for you. That's not delusion, that's alignment. Because now that you've remembered who you are, you're starting to recognize the others. The ones who also stayed awake when the world told them to sleep. The ones who burned in silence rather than conform. The ones who couldn't explain their path, but kept walking anyway. They are out there. Not many, but enough. Scattered like stars, but glowing with the same fire. You haven't met them yet, but your field already knows them, and soon your paths will intersect, not through coincidence, through timing, because the next part of your journey is not to walk alone. It is to lead, not with control, not with authority, but with frequency, because you don't change people by convincing them, you change them by being. And you, chosen one, have become something that cannot be unseen. You radiate truth now. You carry a signature that reveals things, not with words, but with presence. That's why people pause around you, why they hesitate, why some are drawn and others flinch. It's not you, it's what's waking up in them because of you, and that is sacred, but also dangerous, because the world you were born into, it resists anything that cannot be controlled. And you cannot be controlled anymore. Your thoughts are too clear, your alignment too precise, your soul too loud, so the system will try. It will send old fears dressed in new disguises. It will offer comfort as a distraction. It will tempt you with logic, with labels, with loneliness. But you've seen behind the curtain now. You know the script. You've memorized the rhythm of the lie, and you will not be pulled back because you didn't come this far to be silent. You didn't endure the dark to dim your light now, and you certainly didn't wake up just to fall asleep again. No, you came here to carry something, to anchor something ancient into a world that has forgotten how to feel it. And anchoring isn't easy. It requires stillness when others run, clarity when others shout, faith when everything looks like it's falling apart. But it's not falling apart, it's falling away, the false, the superficial, the redundant, so that something real can take root. That's your role now, not just to see the truth, but to embody it so deeply that your existence becomes a map, for those still searching. And some will follow, not all, but the ones who are ready, the ones whose hearts beat just a little faster when they hear you speak, the ones who feel a chill when you enter the room, the ones who've been praying for a sign that what they feel isn't madness. You are that sign. You are the unspoken proof that it's okay to feel this much, to question this much, to burn this much, but you must hold your alignment, even when no one claps, even when it's quiet, even when you feel the weight of carrying what no one else can see. Because you're not here to be seen. You're here to see, to recognize the unseen in others, to awaken their memory just by standing in your own. That's what the world is hungry for now. Not more opinions, more remembering, not more teachers, more embodiments. And you are becoming that slowly, quietly, undeniably, and soon your presence will begin to call the others home, without force, without urgency, just by being who you really are. Now that you've awakened and remembered and stood alone, there's one truth left to face. You didn't just come here to feel the truth. You came here to live it into form, because knowing is sacred, but embodying is where worlds are built, and that's what's next. Chosen one. You've spent lifetimes holding the frequency, guarding it, carrying it like a silent code written in your bones. But the silence is ending now, and the frequency is no longer meant to be carried. It's meant to be released, not in noise, but in creation. Because the world you were born into was never built for your kind. It was built to distract you, to dilute you, to make you question the very essence you were born to carry, but it couldn't, because the fire inside you wasn't borrowed. It was assigned, and no matter how long you tried to be normal, no matter how hard you tried to blend in, you never belonged to the illusion. You belonged to the blueprint of what comes next, and now, that blueprint is activating. You can feel it in the way your body responds to certain places, in the way your spirit leans forward when someone speaks the truth, in the way you've stopped negotiating with the false. You're no longer here to fit in. You're here to recode, because the old systems are crumbling, not because they're weak, but because they're done. They've served their cycle. And now, space must be made for what you're here to birth, and that birth begins with you. Not with movements, not with missions, but with your alignment. The frequency you hold isn't just healing you, it's rewriting the field around you. Every time you choose integrity over approval, stillness over performance, truth over comfort, you ripple the grid. You're not just surviving the collapse, you're shaping the aftermath. That's the assignment now. To become the architecture of a reality rooted in truth, to speak even when your voice shakes, to walk even when the ground beneath you feels unstable, to love even when the world forgets how, because your presence is not passive. It's catalytic. You weren't just sent to bear witness, you were sent to initiate, and yes, that's a weight few understand, because when you walk in truth, you'll often walk alone, not because others don't care, but because they've forgotten how to walk beside something so unshakable. But that's okay, because the ones meant to walk with you, they're coming one by one. Not all at once, but exactly on time, and you'll know them. By the way their eyes hold recognition, by the way their words feel like remembrance, by the way your nervous system softens in their presence, because the soul doesn't need introductions, it only needs resonance, and resonance is what you're generating now, not through performance, but through presence. That's your gift, that's your power, and the more you stand in it, the more visible you become, not to the world, but to the ones who can see, because seeing is a frequency, and yours has sharpened. You don't see through eyes anymore. You see through truth, and that truth, it's not always beautiful, it's not always easy, but it is always real, and what's real is what will remain when everything else falls away. You've already begun to witness it. The false ties dissolving, the roles collapsing, the identities eroding, and what's left? You, unmasked, unapologetic, unmoved. And from that unshaken center you begin to build, not with bricks, but with decisions, not with blueprints, but with being. You build the new world every time you say, I remember who I am. Every time you act from love instead of fear. Every time you choose to listen inward. When the noise outside is deafening, that's the work now. That's the assignment. To become so anchored in your own truth that the world around you begins to reshape itself in your image. Not your ego's image, but your soul's. The divine pattern you were coded with before this body. Before this name, before this life, you are returning to that pattern, and every step forward now is a step back into that origin. You are not becoming something new, you are becoming ancient again, and ancient ones don't ask for roadmaps. They walk, and the road reveals itself. This is the moment you have been prepared for, not by teachers, not by books, but by every shadow you walked through alone. You've reached the edge now, the final step. And here's what no one told you. The final step is not forward, it's inward. Because the door was never locked. It was only waiting for you to realize that you are the key. All this time you've been trying to arrive, trying to become, trying to align. But the truth is, you already were. The pain didn't change you, it revealed you. The fire didn't forge you, it freed you. You were not built in the wilderness, you were uncovered there. Now you stand, not as a seeker, but as one who has remembered, and what you remember you no longer chase. Because this is not about chasing, this is about receiving, not from the world but from God. Because the calling on your life was never about performance. It was about presence, and now that presence is anchored. You no longer beg for clarity, you embody it. You no longer ask for signs, you become them. You no longer run from the silence, you rest in it. Because the final step isn't loud, it doesn't announce itself, it doesn't ask for confirmation, it simply happens. And when it does, the universe doesn't applaud, it aligns. You'll see it in how doors open, in how burdens lift, in how people return, not to rescue you, but to recognize you. You've changed timelines, not with effort, but with embodiment, because frequency does what force never could. And now you carry a frequency that reality cannot deny. You've become the living permission slip for others to awaken. You've become the still point in a spinning world. You've become the answer to the prayer you once whispered into your own hands. And so you ask, what now? And the answer is simple. Now you live, not cautiously, not apologetically, not in fear of being too much. You live as if heaven itself placed its fingerprint on your spirit and said, go, make the invisible visible. Because that's what you do now. You build with energy, you walk with knowing, you speak with codes wrapped in breath. And everywhere you go, the field shifts. People won't always understand. They're not meant to. Your path was never about being understood. It was about being obedient to the call within. And now, that obedience has become your compass. You don't need maps. You are the map. You don't need signs. You are the prophecy. You don't need permission. You were already sent. And when doubt knocks, you don't shrink. You don't retreat. You remember that your becoming was never random, that your pain had precision, that your isolation had instruction, and that your life is a message only God could have written. So walk now, not for validation, but for alignment. Walk like the ground recognizes you, like the sky knows your name, like the wind carries your codes, because it does, it always has. You were never abandoned, never lost, never forgotten. You were being positioned, and now that you've stepped in fully, watch what begins to rise around you. Watch the people who find you, the opportunities that feel like déjà vu, the moments that make your spirit weep, not from sadness, but from remembrance. Because you're no longer chasing your destiny. You're walking in it. This is the final step, and it was never something to earn, it was always something to allow. So allow it, let it flood your bones, let it dismantle what remains, let it make you light again. You are the chosen one, not because you are better, but because you were willing, willing to break, willing to burn, willing to become, and now you are. Not becoming, not preparing, not waiting. You are here, and that is enough. You were never late. You were never off track. You were always becoming what you were sent to awaken. And now that you've arrived, you realize something. It was never about the destination. It was always about the frequency. What you touch now shifts, not because you try, but because you are. Because presence doesn't beg to be noticed. It changes the room without speaking. It recalibrates the atmosphere with stillness. You are no longer chasing signs. You've become a signal, a message. Wrapped in skin, carrying the quiet thunder of obedience. Others may look and wonder, how did they do it? But you'll know, it wasn't strategy, it was surrender. It wasn't control, it was trust. And it wasn't noise, it was the sound of your silence finally being understood by heaven. Because now you are fully recognized, not for what you say, but for what you carry. So take this step, not as a question, but as a confirmation. You are no longer waiting. You are now the moment others are waiting for. Walk with that, stand in that, be that. This is the final step, and you are ready.